about diversity at a portfolio level, and maybe it's a little less interesting to talk about here, but just imagine thinking about diverse crops, place, and so on. But what may be an element of this that's more interesting is we think a lot about complexity in the operations, and I think that our capital markets have tended to shift capital toward more siloed reductionist approaches around the concept of simplifying, with the idea that that reduces risk. We believe that complexity actually equals resilience if you understand the complexity that you're taking on. I've never seen a monoculture that's self-sustaining, but I've seen a lot of other more complex systems that are. And so in everything we do, we're thinking about how we can layer as many activities into that place or that asset or that operation as possible to build revenue resilience, on a ranch or on a farm or in a company. And then across crops. So we tend to have one concentration of something that we're doing on a landscape, but we'll integrate other activities for different reasons. And then I agree with what Wood's saying around vertical integration. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. But if there's anything that I've come away from this work believing, it's that it doesn't make sense to farm in these ways and then sell into a conventional commodity market. And so anything we can do to decouple the output from commodity markets through branding, adding value, or some degree of vertical integration is super important, not only to get paid for what we think is a better product, but also to shorten the food chain, to connect people with the source of their food, and to build brand. And if we can connect people to that, what we think is a great product we're producing, and is produced in a way that's aligned with their values and maybe other things, but it doesn't have to be. Really, we're just focused on creating a great product, that ultimately that diversification for us also equals complexity. And we think that complexity equals resilience and also profitability.
Thanks for that. I love the concept of complexity, especially as it flies in the face of kind of traditional investing schemes. Russell, do you want to talk about diversification in your all's investment portfolio and what you all are looking for?
Yeah, I'd like to state that a lot of the organic farming operations that we do see are a part of a larger farming operation that has both conventional and organic. So you'll, again, maybe an X% of that overall budget. Banks, in my opinion, are typically a little bit more agnostic in the sense that, good cash flow, good working capital, some good collateral, we're all in. So again, it's not so much necessarily nuance from that perspective, but banks, depending on that capital need, and it's our job to help to create a financing solution that is customized to your business and what you're trying to accomplish, and help have that conversation, be that short-term capital, be that long-term capital. What are you trying to accomplish? What does that financing solution really look like? What do the financial covenants look like? Have that conversation with your banker. Make sure you understand where we're coming from. Make sure we understand where you're coming. Help tell the story about what you're trying to accomplish. And again, even though you might all be in organic, you all might be in farming, there again, we're trying to provide a very customized solution based on the relationship that we have with you in order to fulfill that credit need that helps, again, not only today, but longer term. So we're really looking at it from that perspective. I love looking at all companies at all levels and trying to really understand what, again, that senior debt capital need is and where we can provide an opportunity to lend against. We love looking at clients, and there's prospects out there as well, looking at what you guys have with maybe that other bank. Maybe we can be great advisors to you and say, hey, listen, what you're getting is already pretty good, and maybe we can be a backup kind of a bank or relationship just in case something happens. We had an opportunity of a very, very large company that was at a competitor, and they went out for bid, and we came back and said, hey, listen, what you got from that bank is actually really, really good. Really hard to sell and tell the relationship manager to go back to a prospect and say, hey, our competitor has a pretty good deal. But that was a good constructive conversation, and the client got to hear that, and I think they would value a little bit of that honest feedback. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, that's good.
thank you.
It's really different perspectives, right? Because you're in a very large scale traditional bank lender, right? So it's good to have different perspectives on how you're working with farmers and what your approach is, and diversification looks different depending on where you're sitting. So I do want to acknowledge we started a little late, and I will make sure to get you to lunch. So fear not. We'll get out of here by 12:05, which will just give us a little bit longer for this conversation, but I promise not to hold you hostage, okay? So I want to take us in a little bit of a different direction, which is, we mentioned, there was a little bit of mention of climate or market volatility, and I'm curious on the investment strategy, like for Wood and Steve in particular, as you're looking towards businesses, how are you using organic as a hedge against different types of volatility? And if so, how are you selling that as part of your fund as you're raising capital? Or how are you looking for that on the farm level or business level?
So I think it goes back to, if you equate organic to taking a more agroecological approach, we found that there's resilience on the farms once we start to integrate these practices. I was in a discussion earlier talking about soil organic matter and water. I think that everybody knows the more organic matter we can get into soil, the better the water holding capacity. Everybody seems to use 20,000 gallons per acre for every 1% increase of organic matter. But that builds resilience in times of heavy rain, and it also provides a store of water during periods that are drier. So I guess I don't know if it's necessarily organic itself, but I think anything we can do to apply organic practices builds resilience.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also say, I think for us, one of the things that we're particularly focused on, as I've said a few times, is scale, and the trying to identify. We've really taken an approach as we think about this next phase, really a steward-first approach. We're not at all interested in looking at a piece of ground and then trying to figure out what to do with it. We're really trying to find stewards that know, are really place-based in what they do. They understand the practices that work in a given area, understand how to manage how to manage a farm or ranch in a given area, and are excited about the trajectory. That's a huge signal for us as we think about this, and that's certainly true on the organic side. And I think some of the conversations we've had in organic are with folks who, recognize that have been able to build enough experience and recognize that there is significant profitability benefit to them as producers on the organic side, and if they can do that at scale and by broadening their scale, can manage their cost, the cost of those operations differently and more efficiently. That's better all around. And I think that's been one of the challenges that we've seen in organic, is just kind of not as much of a concern about sort of an underlying belief that the cost structure is just going to be overall more burdensome and will always be more burdensome, and that just is what it is, versus something that's more that does take some of this sort of holistic management or kind of a regenerative mindset to bear on the whole system, and ultimately is focused on getting costs under control through scale. I think that's the way we think about it, and that's how we're trying to figure out how to make some of these investments that we're trying to make in this fund.
Absolutely.
I had another thought. You were talking about the social side of this earlier, and I think if we were to apply the concepts of organic regeneration to people, a lot of our work also has to do with generational transition. We end up working with a lot of families whose, the parents are getting older. You've got two siblings in the city. You've got one on the farm. The two siblings in the city want the money. The one on the farm wishes they could keep it, but they can't afford to buy out the other two. I think there has historically been a tendency for investment capital to come in, buy the land, kick everybody off, and feel like they know what's best. And Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think, for some reason, it resonated as organic to me, but we have always, a lot of our work, because it's related to generational transition, and the food companies as well, we've tried to keep people on the land to whatever degree we can, and to retain not only the institutional knowledge, but also solve for that generational transition through life estates for the parents. Or if the sibling that wants to stay on the farm is a good actor and knows what they're doing, to keep them on the farm as the farm manager, and we've done this multiple times. And also to keep the farm team to whatever degree we can. And so I think it's somewhat antithetical to the typical investment process of acquiring land and putting your own team on. But I also think it actually builds a lot of resilience, because hopefully we can retain the institutional knowledge on that land, no matter how experienced our team is. And I think over time, that has served us well, not only in building resilience, but it is also aligned with our ethos, and our investors have to buy into that stuff when they decide to entrust us with their capital.
I would say too, Stephen, to that point, and that's a great point, is from again, traditional lending point of view, as we're lending money into that space, someone comes in and buys it, the question again is, who has the expertise to farm, to continue to pay and produce? So banks will look at that and look at that very closely about who has the expertise. I got a call from someone in Idaho, individual at Merrill Lynch, came into a lot of money, and he, for some reason, someone told him that he should buy a dairy in Idaho. And I said, well, what's going on? Well, it was a tax play. And I said, well, that's great. But again, I'm lending money into this dairy. Someone needs to know how to operate the dairy, and I really need to understand there's still expertise on the ground from that perspective. It wasn't just a paper play. So that was really important in the decision-making process for us. And yeah, I don't think they were able to get the deal done, and we were not a part of that. So.
Yeah, as we kind of close out, I want to capture some themes, which were kind of emergent for me. The human capital aspect of it, and honoring the wisdom, especially of multiple generations. And I said earlier that we're in this massive land transition in California. We're also in a generational transition. Many people are retiring out, especially legacy organic farmers. And so how do we make sure that we honor that wisdom and bring it forward so that we learn from what previous generations have kind of gained? And then bring it forward in a way that also supports the next generation having sustainable livelihoods, and either having a multi-generational business like Alexander Family Farm that was in here, or being creative in a way that still keeps the kids who want to be involved. So just to close us out, I'm curious if you all could talk about, very briefly, just what you see as the long-term value proposition in organic specifically. Like, where do you see the growth? Where are you inspired to take your businesses?
Well, again, we're open for business and ready to support. So I don't mean that to be overly generic or just basic, but we get it, we understand it. Again, personally, I think the bank in general has a definite want as well to support sustainable operations, period. So, looking forward to partner and really understand. Again, talk to your bankers, make sure they understand the value proposition that you guys already know that you have, and help tell that story so that we can provide some good, solid financing. So.
Yeah, I think if you look at the data, and you probably have much better data than we do, there's such depth to the demand for organic certified products. And I've thought it was interesting recently to just read about the imbalance between what's produced domestically and consumed domestically versus what's imported. And of course, you've got the geopolitical pressures around tariffs and things around imported product. But I also think that the US consumer would prefer to buy a domestically produced organic crop. And the only reason that we've got such a big import market is to satisfy consumer demand. And if you look at the numbers in the grocery store, conventional products are declining, and organic is growing exponentially each year. So I've bet my career on it, but I think that there is a really exciting opportunity, and it's such a huge market. I don't think that any of us needs there to be a big market shift. I mean, if we can just produce these products in a way that is aligned with whatever we're trying to accomplish and figure out who to sell it to that values what we've produced, that there is a really deep opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I also feel like there's just, I'm going to be so bold as to suggest that I think one of the opportunities is around real category conversion. Like we have an opportunity, if we can move capital into organic transition more effectively than I think we have, to start thinking about how to make whole categories effectively organic. I mean, I have enough experience in blueberries to imagine that is conceivable. I think you have to think about it in the context of managing at scale and managing costs appropriately, so that we're not only thinking about the long-term premiums that can be generated from organic. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that in the near term, but I do think longer term, we have to start imagining scenarios where whole categories are organic, and there's plenty of room for lots of players at lots of different scales to participate in a fully realized organic category for one fruit or one veg or one nut or whatever it happens to be. So that's the way I'm thinking about kind of what the next phase is.
100%. At CCUF, we have a vision of a world where organic is the norm, and it's going to take all of us working together, including really creative capital means. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you all for being here today. And if you want to continue the conversation, I invite you to come up to the stage and ask more questions. Thank you again.